There have been some events happening in the Nancy Guthrie case, as well as a whole lot of speculation about who the masked intruder is that starred in the photos and video that were released yesterday by the FBI. You know who I think the intruder is? I have no idea. But let me tell you, there are a lot of people out there who are positive it's Nancy's son-in-law, Tommaso Ciani, or it's his bandmate, Dominic Evans, or it's Nancy's daughter Annie, and some even think it's Savannah. And when Carlos Palazuelos was detained last night in Rio Rico, Arizona, people were sure it was him on the camera. But he has been since released and is adamant that he had nothing to do with Nancy's abduction. Speaking of Carlos, people have been saying that he's on the sex registry for assaulting an 11-year-old, but it's not him. The sex registry Carlos is 56, and if this Carlos is 56, I need to know his skin regimen immediately. There was also a rumor that an 84-year-old woman was medevaced from Rio Rico to Banner University Medical Center in Tucson last night. Authorities have now stated that there was someone taken by helicopter to Tucson, but it wasn't Nancy. So what about the claims that the intruder is the bandmate, Dominic Evans? Well, people are comparing a photo of Dominic with that of the intruder, and someone even went as far as putting a ski mask on Dominic's photo. Well, the problem is that they're using an old photo of Dominic. Here's what they're using, and here's a more recent photo of him. So he no longer has a black goatee, it's mostly gray now. So if you're going to accuse someone of being a kidnapper, at least do enough research that you're not using a photo that is probably over a decade old. There's also a lot of chatter about the eyebrows on the intruder, but I'm not convinced they're actually eyebrows. I think it might just be a shadow from where the ski mask doesn't sit against the face on either side of the bridge of his nose. So if we look at this photo, you can see that the eye hole for the ski mask goes below that lighter outline. And on this photo, there's even a shadow at the bottom of the eye hole. Here's a slowdown of the video when the intruder is first walking up, and if you watch his eyes, there's nothing that looks like an eyebrow until the shadows change. There's also speculation that the intruder was a woman because it looked like they had on eyeliner. Well, I think that this might just be from the camera being in night mode. The infrared creates weird shadows. So here are a couple of other photos of men where a doorbell camera or security camera also made them look like they're wearing eyeliner. Another point that went in the It's a Woman column is that the person has small feet. I don't know that they necessarily do. I think maybe in just parts of the video and on the camera, you can't really see the shoes as well. You can't see the toe to the heel. But if the tiles are a standard 12 inches, then it looks like this person wears about a 10.5 in US men's sizes. And the last thing I want to touch on about the video is this bit. So in this part, we see him bend over, pull up a plant, and then as he's standing up, he looks off to his left as though he might be talking to someone or maybe saw or heard something in that direction. But it does make me wonder if someone else was there. Not that I think it's necessarily related, but in September of last year, a neighbor of Nancy's had his home broken into by what looks to be two men. And there was also a woman at the house twice earlier in the day, pretending to attempt to deliver a package. In one video, she had on an Amazon t-shirt, but then she turned around and left with the package. And she did that twice. That's not how package delivery works, chickie. The authorities believed that she was checking out the house for the two guys who later broke in. She was eventually arrested and then was released on bond, and I don't think she's had any trial yet. And as far as I've been able to find, neither of the men that actually did the breaking in have been arrested. And the homeowner said that he had talked to the neighbor that lived behind him, and that neighbor had also been broken into. Like I said, it's not necessarily related to Nancy's abduction at all, but I thought it was an interesting side note. And finally, TMZ received another anonymous note today that alleged that the writer knew who kidnapped Nancy and needed 1 Bitcoin to spill the beans. So 1 Bitcoin is worth around $66,000, and the reward from the FBI is $50,000 for a tip that leads to an arrest. If this is just someone wanting to help the case, why not try to get the legal, non-sketchy reward? I'm not sure how much closer authorities are to finding Nancy, but they did say that after the release of the photos and video of the intruder, that they have received a high volume of calls and tips. But as is much in life, I think the quality of those matters more than the quantity. And I'll be back with updates as the case progresses. Thank you so much for being here.